Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning, Janet. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for doing this for us.
Of course, of course, of course. I couldn't think of a better way to hit midweek than talking about children and no small matter and advocacy, all the good stuff.
That's right. Good afternoon. My name is Janet Owen. I'm president of the Easton Kiwanis Club, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to one of our members, Jan Schwartz. She is going to be in charge of the meeting today. It is such an honor to have our presenter, Rachel Giannini, from the movie No Small Matter with us today. And so we will have an opportunity to speak towards the end, but I'm going to turn this now over to Jan on such, this is just such an honor. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Janet. As Janet said, my name is Jan Schwartz. I'm the Outreach Director for the Pennsylvania Association for the Education of Young Children, PenAEYC, and we sponsor the virtual screening of No Small Matter, and we're also sponsoring today's presentation by Rachel. PenAEYC is a statewide nonprofit membership organization of over 2,500 early childhood care and education professionals. As part of Pennsylvania's, and as we are the Pennsylvania affiliate of the National Association for the Education of Young Children. We are part of a network that includes 52 affiliates, state affiliates, and nearly 60,000 individual members nationwide. Through policy development, advocacy, and professional development and supports for early childhood professionals, we work to achieve the vision that all Pennsylvania families will have access to high quality, affordable, early childhood care and education opportunities for their children, provided by a profession that is valued, well compensated, and supported. And I'll drop my organization's link in the chat box a little bit later. So our presenter today is the preschool teacher you saw in the yellow room in the film No Small Matter. So I hope you had the opportunity to screen the film. If you didn't, the link is live until midnight tonight, so you'll still have a chance. And this film is promoted as the first feature documentary to explore the most overlooked, underestimated, and powerful force for good in America today, early childhood education. So I'm thrilled that Rachel's here. Rachel is a childhood specialist, an early childhood advocate, and a video blog host. She currently splits her time as a public speaker, early childhood commentator, curriculum designer, and the star of Spy School on Hellosaurus. Rachel's writing, expertise, and videos have appeared in Vox, the New York Times, HuffPost, Child Care Exchange, and Chicago Parent. Rachel has an MFA in museum education for the University of Illinois and is a volunteer hospital magician for Open Heart Magic. So welcome, Rachel. Like I said, I'm glad you're here today, and I'm really looking forward to your presentation for Kiwanis members. Thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you so much, Jan, for reaching out and inquiring. As a NAEYC member, I love nothing more than being able to talk to educators. And I had the honor of keynoting in Salt Lake at the International Kiwanis Conference, which was, I think, don't tell the teachers, but I think y'all are now like my official favorite new audience to talk to. I love the Kiwanis members. My grandfather is a Kiwanis, my great-grandfather is a Kiwanis. So I am just in awe and proud to be here today, especially talking about a subject that is truly my passion. So I'm going to go ahead and set my alarm, because as a middle child, I will just keep talking, and y'all got stuff to do today. There's a chicken thing going down, and we don't need me to take up all your time. But I do want to talk greatly about the documentary No Small Matter. As Jan mentioned, according to the New York Post, it is changing the way that we think about early childhood ed. That link is live for the next few hours. So by all means, like, rewatch it, tell somebody else, have them watch it. But we are going to show little snippets today and really break down how it's applicable to what's going on within our country and within your region. So let me start with a little bit of a background. No Small Matter. Actually, you know what? Let's start off with the trailer. Let's get the sharing starting early.
Babies in the beginnings of humanity grew up in these very rich extended families. So in that kind of context, caring for children, teaching them, just getting the work done that you need, they all take place at the same time. And of course, the world that we live in now is a very, very different world from that.
We have a society in which moms and dads both have to work to even support a family at all. The central problem is that the ability to provide that nurturing attention early in life is less than ever before.
Good job.
Minimum wage just isn't paying bills.
We couldn't afford to put him in preschool. Johnny's with him all day and I'm with him all night.
This notion of the American dream, that is fundamentally not happening.
Because of the fact that, it took us that much to get her here, that putting her life in someone else's hands means so much.
1 year old. He can't say anything, he doesn't sit up, he doesn't walk.
When those markers are set in childhood, they impact the way our bodies work for the rest of our lives.
These are our children, our families in this country. Ignoring this and just going on as if it's going to correct itself, that's a disaster for us as a society.
This is not the way it's supposed to be.
We have a deeper understanding now of how important these early years are and why.
We're unlocking the secrets of the brain. First time in history. We never had a way to look into a baby's brain before.
What's going on up there is rocket science.
Babies' early experiences create the foundation for all that follows.
Yes! I want to be their Miss Honey. I want to be the one that's like, you can do anything!
They are doing the work that will really fundamentally make a difference for the outcomes of these young children.
We need leaders in every community to step up and say, every child should have access to high-quality early education.
If we get this right, our country will look dramatically different.
Oh. Whatever we want to call it, childcare, preschool, home, we have to do it everywhere.
So, everyone can still see me, right, in the corner? All right, cool, just making sure. So let me give you a little bit of background of No Small Matter. In 2015, there were two production companies, Kindling Group and Siskel Jacobs. And unbeknownst to the other, they each decided that they wanted to start a conversation around the topic of early childhood ed, because frankly, it wasn't happening. And they were both Chicago production companies, and Chicago is an extraordinarily small market. So as they went around to funders asking for money, essentially every single funder was basically like, weren't you just here? Didn't you just ask us for money? Why don't the two of you start working together? So if you've heard the phrase, 2 heads are better than 1, 3 heads obviously seems to be the most ideal situation, because our directors for this film are Danny Albert, Greg Jacobs, and John Siskel. The 3 of them decided to take that year and take a really solid look at what was going on within our country. They filmed in Nevada, they filmed in California, and they started a hunt and a search for a classroom that they would embed in. Now, friends, imagine, if you will, somebody came to your job every day for 8 weeks, and they were there all day. And let's just say your job involved wrangling 20 cats at all times. Needless to say, it was a little bit of an adventure. They found me essentially through a mentor that I had who was in Cambridge, and said, hey, there's actually a teacher within your community I suggest checking out. They showed up, and of course that day, everything was on fire. It was the day that they walked in and they immediately walked out, and I was like, well, we'll never see them again. But little did I know, they came back multiple times, did screenshots, screen tests, brought some lawyers, and then they embedded within our classroom. So a couple of things happened within this filming time, within these last few weeks of the school year for 2015. One of which was a really interesting conversation I had with one of the directors, Greg Jacobs. I basically said, why are you here? Why are you here every day? And he said, well, nobody else is talking about early ed, and we need to really put a voice out there because what's going on within your classroom is incredible. And we need to just raise awareness. It's an advocacy film. And as somebody who is covered in paint and makes less than a dog walker, I never thought I had a voice. I never thought I was an advocate for anything. Why would anybody care about my opinion? Because monetarily, you pay me so little. You think I am a babysitter. So why in the world would at any point in time you give me, I would ever remotely assume that my voice carried any weight? And I thought that was a very interesting comment of this film is going to be a film advocating for early ed. So filming wrapped in 2015. And oopsie, not yet. And Greg said something that I thought was really poignant. He said, making a documentary is like shooting an arrow into the sky. You never know when it's going to land and where it's going to land. Because this film, I don't know if anyone's aware, it takes a long time to edit and score and narrate and write a film, even documentaries. So this film did not actually come out until 2018. It took 3 years to get this puppy into the air. And I couldn't think of a better time for it to land because it landed about 3 months prior to the midterm elections. And for the first time in our country, both Republicans and Democrats ran on platforms of early childhood ed. And then that corresponds with the film coming out, and there became a wave that in the world of early ed we had never seen before. There had never been a film that was so comprehensive, taking such a holistic look at a topic, and you have a national platform where people who are running for offices are making early ed a topic worth running on. If you can see very briefly, we have had a lot of funders. We have a very deep well that we continue to pull from as we do more advocacy work. And God bless our funders. They are so loving and so giving and so dedicated to the cause of early ed. So No Small Matter comes out 2018. We have now shown in every state. We have shown in over 3,000 locations. We have shown in 5 countries. The film is now in, I believe, 4 other languages. And it's been incredible, from Alaska to Key West and New York to San Diego, all across this country. We have done screenings. And the thing that I absolutely love about our screenings is it's not just to the choir. One of the biggest fears I think everyone in the film, attached to the film, I should say, had was this idea that this film was only going to be seen by teachers, only going to be seen by administrators. Because you know what, friends? An echo chamber is not a lot of fun. We can all talk about like, yes, we need to change it. Yes, that would be a great idea. Okay, let's move on. But this film hasn't. It's been seen by such a wide, diverse audience. And as a result, some incredible things have happened. So we are going to take a brief look at our impact report because it is astounding. I have preemptive chills all over with information I'm about to give you. Okay, so for example, this film was picked up by healthcare providers, by pediatricians, and in Rhode Island, as well as multiple other states, they are using No Small Matter with their pediatricians and their pre and postnatals to talk with women and families about what is happening, giving doctors an actual look about what is going on within these families' lives. And I think it's an extraordinary training tool. There's also multiple hospitals now in Georgia, Louisiana, and I want to say Alabama that are making it before that amazing mom takes that brand new baby home. They watch No Small Matter, which I think is astounding to have this really wonderful piece of information that you also take home, knowing now that you are your child's first and best teacher and every moment matters with that child. So back to even talking about Georgia, we did a screening, and I love this. We did a screening with a gentleman. His name's Nick Chastain, but he's actually Dr. Nick Chastain now. And he saw No Small Matter at a community event and decided he wanted to host his own screening. But prior to that, he started building on this idea of cradle to college, and within their community, and only focusing within their community because it was hyper impoverished. What does it look like if we actually invest in children and follow them the entire way to college, being there for their parents, taking a very holistic approach of education as a whole within that family unit? So offering a 2-generation program, offering childcare pre and post school hours. And so it just goes to show how exciting and infectious this is, because at Dr. Chastain's screening, Dr. Thomas basically saw it. She saw my keynote and was like, you know what, I want to help. So she wrote a book. She wrote a book called JR's Biggest Fan. And the entire purpose of this book is about resilience and talking about how strong you are and all of these things you can do, even though you're just a little kid. And she translated it into Spanish. And then she made sure that every single child in that county received a book. It's these small things that just continue to build up to make real change. And I love that idea that this one step, this one tiny thing you do on one little day can just start a domino effect that affects the lives of children all over. And I think that that is such a key part about advocacy, is something that takes you 10 minutes can affect 10 generations. It's really spectacular. Let's go back to our impact. So this is when we start getting into some dollars and start getting into some legislation, and I am blown away. So friends, we screened it in 8 times, and I'll tell you a moment about what we did in Vermont. So we had a really great connection with educators in Vermont, and basically they were saying, hey, we're getting ready to make the budget. Our state is, we want to show No Small Matter to really make sure that everybody takes time to contact their representatives and say, hey, straight up, put money towards early ed. So we screened it. We did a massive mobilization of Vermonters to call their local officials for increased investment, and it worked. It worked at $7.4 million, a historic increase to this budget for affordable childcare. And because of the fact that they added the additional component that the well for early ed teachers are drying up because the rumor got out and nobody pays us, that nobody was going into the field and people were leaving, that they put money towards recruitment. That is huge. It goes to show that one phone call, one letter, reaching out does make a difference. I know it seems like such a cliche that your voice could change things, but it can. On that same note, even more, I love this because if anyone ever says that early ed is a blue issue, it's not. It's the one thing that both sides of the aisle, you give them a baby and they take it up. It's something that brings people together. And in Alabama, we screened it for the House Ways and Means Committee. We made sure that every single aide had it to give to the representative. And what resulted, as you can see, is $7.1 billion. Friends, that is billion with a B, $1 billion that went to a 4% pay increase for every single education employee of the state. And this is incredible. It's 164 new pre-K spots. They were making sure that every single child had the ability to have high quality early ed. It gets so passionate. So let me hit escape really fast because I'm going to tell you. Dun, 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 stop sharing. There we are. I have to tell you that these numbers, it's amazing. If you've ever seen No Small Matter with a large group of people, the room is electric. It ends, and I love that Jan shaking her head because she knows, like, it ends and there's this call to action where it's like, okay, what can I do? What can I do now? Because It's so powerful. But I think the most powerful thing that I personally have witnessed happened in California. We were in LA. It was 2018. And friends, we had a screening in a theater. Like there was a trailer to a rock movie. Like there was candy. It was real. Like it was so real. We passed out tickets all day. And 8 people came. Not 80 or 18, but 8. And the film ends and the house lights turn up. And we go into question and answer. And there's a gentleman, and he's sitting by himself. And he raised his hand and he goes, I didn't know this was a problem. How come we don't talk about this? He wasn't a parent. He wasn't a teacher. He just came in off the street because he wanted to see a documentary. And that's when everything hit me. Everything Greg said 3 years prior came to fruition. It's an advocacy film. And you can't fix a problem that you don't know that you have. Awareness is the catalyst for real change. Once you, and it's so much common sense, you can't fix something that you're unaware of. And the world of early ed has found this really dark black hole because it's so fascinating. And it makes so much sense when you realize that even though this issue affects everybody, affects our country, nobody advocates for us because it makes perfect sense. Because here's the deal. If you're a parent and you're a parent of somebody under 5, you are making it through that day. That is your goal. We're going to make it through the day, and then we're going to make it through the next day and the next day and the next day. Not to mention you're also working and you're doing 5 other things and keeping this child alive. And then guess what? Then you're worried about 3rd grade and then 4th grade and 5th grade, then college, and you really never take time and say, what do you think's going on with that preschool teacher? Let's go ahead and go back and invest in them because you're growing with that child. That child's concern on that day is your concern. And we very rarely go back. So parents aren't advocating for teachers, aren't advocating for early ed. Teachers themselves, due to the fact of monetarily, we are paid little. In the eyes of society, we are seen as babysitters. And also, we work 2 jobs and we're constantly busy. The number one thing that we're thinking of is when we have free time is what's the best new Play-Doh recipe I can make for a kid? Or how am I going to rearrange my room next? Or what child do I need to work on an IEP for? We're not thinking, I'm going to go and write a letter to make sure that I get paid more. We're not there. And as a whole, as a country, we are not uplifting this topic. It wasn't an urgency until last year. And then last year, everything changed. Over 4 million childcare centers closed in this country. The turnover rate for early ed teachers was over 40%. Everything was brought into the light. And for the first time, we were sitting at the big kids table. We weren't at the kids' card table on the side. And people were asking us what we needed because they realized that if you want this country to go to work, somebody needs to stay at home and watch the kids. And with most families both having to be employed, and trust me, I don't know if y'all have done a Zoom when there's a kid around. Good luck. Having childcare is essential. And our country finally recognized it. And there's some incredible bills that are now made it to the House that we can talk about a little bit later that you can lend your voice to, because not only does it go to support high quality, but it supports teachers getting paid more so we don't turn over and leave. There are just so many things that we can do that are just so tangible that we can make real change on. And I know this topic is big. And I know when something is overwhelming, it's really easy to be like, I'm good. But 10 minutes of your time can change the lives of so many children. I want to point out briefly that right now in this country, the population of children under 5 is about 20%. Okay? They're only 20% of the population. They are 100% of our future. They are literally going to be in charge. So the idea of having children who have empathy, who are healthy, who are active within our society is going to only go to better our country if we invest now. So my soapbox is thoroughly as high as it will get. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about the problem, because again, you can't fix a problem you don't know you have. So we're going to watch some clips of No Smell Matter. If you've already seen No Smell Matter, I love it. With the lens that we just talked about, put that on. Put on your 2021 lens and look at these issues through what's going on right now, because right now, more than ever, your voice can actually be used for change. It won't go into that dark hole. It will be amplified tenfold. So let's go ahead, go back to the sharing screen, and we go to here. All right.
Every week, more than 11 million American children under the age of 5 spend over half their waking hours in the care of someone other than their parents. The cost of that care is soaring. In 28 states, it's now more expensive to put a baby in childcare than it is to send a kid to public college. But just 10% of the childcare in America is considered high quality. So you pretty much have no idea what you're going to get once that door closes.
When I had my second son, I quickly began to realize that childcare was going to cost us $2,000 a month. That was the mortgage.
I have what I can imagine is a very good starting out first job, after college, and I still cannot afford childcare.
I would either have to work to sustain childcare, but I wouldn't be able to pay my other bills, or I would just have to, stay at home and not pay childcare to take care of my child, but then I'm not making any income.
But if you go for a subsidy or you go to ask for money to help, they look at you funny because they're like, you make too much. You don't make enough to do that. So I'm stuck in that kind of middle class bracket.
I didn't have anywhere to go. I did not have any structural support. And I ended up having to move into a homeless shelter.
My son cried so much at that daycare within this woman's home that eventually I had to quit my job, because while I couldn't prove it, I knew something was wrong. And he was too young to articulate anything. As he got a little older, he was able to tell me, Mommy, she just yelled. She yelled and screamed a lot.
Kaylee was not our first pregnancy. We actually miscarried with twins and then miscarried again after that. So being able to have a viable live birth and child was even more, we wanted to take care of her even more so. I'm getting teary. Because of the fact that, it took us that much to get her here that, sorry, I didn't know this was gonna happen. That putting her life in someone else's hands means so much. So from the beginning, knowing what I saw in childcare, I didn't want to put her there. So we just, bounced her around family member to family member until we made the decision for her dad to stay home.
This is not the way it's supposed to be.
Sadly, not much has changed, except for the fact that unemployment in this country is now extraordinarily low. So you now have people who are completely unable to afford childcare, but yet they need to actively go out and look for jobs. They are interviewing, they're applying, and somebody needs to take care of those children. Yet childcare still in this country, over 28 states, it costs more than to send a child to a state university. So here's the deal. Why is that? Because here's the deal. Parents can't pay any more. Teachers can't make any less. So there is a massive head scratcher. And if you break it down to the most fundamental component, it's infrastructure. It's the buy-in from our government to make this through money an issue that we are now taking care of schools, regulating to ensure that schools are high quality. And I want to talk about that briefly too. within your state is actually really, it's better than most. Pre-K students, so 3, 4s, and 5s, you have like 40% of your schools are deemed high quality. That is a high number. It's not more than half, but in our country, that's really good. And it's still bad. Your infant care, it's about 37% is deemed high quality. Again, it's high up in our country's ranking, and that's pathetic. That's not okay. So what does that look like? What can we do? It is the idea of talking about high quality and mentioning that we need to have childcare. Well, what does childcare look like? It needs to have ratios that make sure that it's safe. There's enough teachers for children. We need to make sure that that child is in a center that is meeting all of the DCF codes. In addition, we need to make sure that teachers are engaging with children, engaging with them on their level. That means that they have to be trained. Does that mean that they need to have Harvard educations? Not necessarily, but there needs to be professional development, accessible professional development that teaches them these tips and tricks. Because you know what? I've been in centers where that grandma up the street who was never able to get a college degree, but you know what? She takes every professional development course that's offered, be so much more developmentally appropriate than a lot of other teachers. So mind you, right now in Georgia, there's a really great push. It's under STAR to eliminate barriers so teachers can get higher educations in regards of bachelor's and master's. But they're also doing a big push for people to just have high quality professional development, things that are so tangible they can take and bring into their classroom. And I know I'm throwing out a lot of words, but these little things, because right now what we're doing is professional development, but it has to be accessible. It has to be given at a time under a technology that a teacher can actually watch. So let's move on to our next topic.
We give everybody a shot and things don't turn out right. To me, that's the American way. I can live with that. But you cannot tell me that for certain Americans, they're going to have every advantage you can imagine. And they're going to compete against these kids who have nothing. And we're going to say, oh, which kid is probably going to do better? And be surprised?
It's a vicious cycle, and studies show the deck is stacked from the start. By age 3, children from higher income families have heard an average of 30 million more words than their low-income peers. By 5, they've spent 1,300 more hours in places like libraries and museums, and their parents are spending thousands of dollars more on preschool and educational enrichment. All this extra stimulation has an impact on the developing brain. By the first day of kindergarten, higher income kids are already as much as 2 years ahead in language development.
So this is a gap of opportunity that really starts to turn into an academic and achievement gap.
A low-income 4th grader who's already behind in reading is 13 times more likely to drop out of high school. And kids who drop out of high school are 50% more likely to be unemployed than high school graduates, and 8 times more likely to be incarcerated.
You can make an honest argument that keeping kids in school is grassroots crime prevention. We're in a $400 million state prison that will be opening within the next 8 months to house 3,500 inmates, 40% of whom came through our door without a high school diploma. This is the most expensive and least effective way to address these issues. So for me, it's just really simple. True criminal justice reform is investing in early childhood education.
Look, the most critical point in a kid's life is right now, right? So if they're 8, it's right now. If they're 12, it's right now. But I'm going to tell you this. The investment you do in that young person from the very beginning gives you the best possibility of scaling this thing and being successful. Because in the end, this will pay off dividends for this country in a way that nothing else will.
Shay Gaddis is about as close to living proof of that as you can get. Gaddis is the executive director of the Flatbush YMCA in Brooklyn. He also happens to be one of the subjects of a landmark early learning study that's been tracking him for more than 40 years, the Abecedarian Project. Launched in 1972 by researchers in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, the study was designed to examine the long-term impact of full-day, high-quality early care and education on low-income children like Shay.
I started when I was 3 months old. I do have vivid memories, and I remember sort of games, puzzles, those kind of things, which today I can't stop playing with puzzles, to be quite honest. The puzzles was here.
4.5 decades in, the results of the study are striking. As a group, Gaddis and his former classmates are healthier, they're better educated, they make more money, and they're less likely to have committed a crime than a group of similar kids the study also tracked who didn't attend the program.
My mom, she had me when she was 15. So my grandparents raised me from birth. Neither one of them had a third grade education, couldn't read or write. So from my own experience, here's a child that grew up with limited resources, but was able to attain a level playing field in the classroom. If I didn't have the Abecedarian program, probably wouldn't have had that chance.
We have a chance of ending intergenerational poverty. Today in this country, you're born into poverty, odds are you're going to end up as an adult in poverty. High quality early childhood education has a strong possibility of breaking that cycle.
Abecedarian is one of several long-term studies that show when it comes to children, the earlier we invest, the bigger the payoff for society.
Compared to all the things then we do for the rest of their life, we are writing checks that are so much more expensive than what it would have been had we invested when they were little.
You can put a dollar value on not having to retain a child. You can put a dollar value on the healthcare implications long term. You can put a dollar value on not needing special ed. You can put a dollar value on the child graduating high school, getting a better job, and not paying taxes. In particular, you can put dollar values on the cost of crime, which is huge. You won't find a better public return than investing in early childhood education.
So right now in our country, that return is about $14. Okay, so let me explain this. For every $1 that's invested in early childhood ed will lead to a $14 return. That's why it's economically the best investment you can possibly make. So there's the head scratcher of like, okay, that's incredible. Why aren't we doing that? Well, here's the thing. We have a very short attention span in this country, despite the fact that there are TV shows that have been on for 20 years. The idea of investing right now and recognizing that you will not see a return for 15 to 20 years is something that we just don't want to put money into. The long game is not something we're looking for. Instead, we're going for those quick fixes of interventions, those quick fixes of prisons that sincerely will cost us tenfold more than the $1 that we would have put in early on. So it really comes down to this change of mindset, this idea of when we plant that seed in April, in May, realizing that we're not going to be able to eat and pick that fruit or smell those flowers until well later in the harvest, until the season starts to change. We all need to take that same approach with our children. We need to put that seed in, knowing that what's going to grow, we're going to continue to nurture it, is going to be so much richer than anything we could have just bought, which would be 10 times more expensive. Clearly, I'm doing my garden right now, so it's on my mind. The other thing I want to point out really fast is the Shay Gaddis story. So the Abecedarian is not the only longitudinal study. They briefly said that there are several, one of them which is the Perry Preschool Project. The adults now in the Perry Preschool Project are about 40 years old. It's very similar to the Abecedarian in the sense of they took low-income children and gave them high quality early care And essentially, that did not continue their whole life. It wasn't like, and then they went to a great elementary school, and then they went to a great high school. No, it was just the early years. It was under the age of 5. Those children, despite the fact of even later went into systems of their peers, those children still, much like Shay and the Abecedarian, they make more money. They're less likely to be incarcerated. They were less likely to have teenage pregnancies or suffer from substance abuse. These 5 years makes such a difference. And while I have not been part of one of these trials, I am a direct example of early ed. My parents had 3 kids under 3 before my mom was 20, early and often. My mom dropped out of high school. My father dropped out of college. They both worked 3 jobs, and they essentially struggled. However, they found an incredible Head Start program, a federally funded, high quality program that I went into. Head Start takes a holistic look and talks with the family, meaning like it's not just the children they are devoting their time to. They educate parents. They truly look at the family as a whole, because we don't just teach kids, we support everybody. Helped my parents with interventions for my sister because she's Down syndrome, helped with tons of government funding programs so my parents could continue their education. And what happens right now is my parents are madly in love. They're celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. My brother has his master's and is a teacher. I have my master's and I am a teacher. And my Down syndrome sister is thriving. None of that would have been possible unless my family had support at an early, crucial time in all of our development. I am living proof here today to tell you that none of that is fluff. These long-term studies are that hard evidence of why we need to invest, of why we need to support. In Pennsylvania, there's over 250,000 children who are eligible for high quality early ed, but they're unserved. That's unacceptable. And there's a lot we can do to get children in spaces. All right. So toxic stress is a really intense topic. It's about 10 minutes long. So I'm going to go ahead so we have time for questions. I'm going to skip it. But guess what, friends? This is part of the movie. Y'all have the movie. So check it out. So please, by all means, this is, again, super applicable when it comes to the number of students that we now see entering. Oopsie daisy. There we go. Toxic stress is super applicable when it comes to, especially right now, 2021. We have a lot of students who are coming into our classrooms who are exhibiting signs of toxic stress. And it's essentially, again, with something as simple as really high quality professional development, we can help teachers who are able to then work into social emotional literacy and learning to really help these children so that they are able to be extraordinarily successful, because toxic stress not only tends to derail early ed, but then has long-term effects on health. And we can really help prevent so much of the damage right now. But again, it's one of those things of, it's really difficult for a child, or excuse me, it's difficult for a teacher in a very large classroom with children that are considered quote unquote problem children because they're acting out due to toxic stress, to just kick them to the curb, expel them, get them out of their class, or just ignore them. But in actuality, what we need to be doing is providing in-class therapies and making it a part of our daily curriculum of adding that social emotional component. Again, professional development that we can help invest in so teachers can have proper training. All right. One thing I also want to point out is that Jan and myself are going to give you a couple of really incredible resources within your state. You do not know how lucky you are to have such comprehensive ed reports that are done by Starting Strong PA and Pre-K for Pennsylvania that break down so many of the topics of early ed. Like there's an entire thing about prison costs and what would happen if we actually just started altering our mindset to do that early investment, to plant that seed, to spend money on children, and how financially it would increase that the states. So we'll have links to all this in a moment, but I'm not done talking yet. I have 7 more minutes, so let's keep going. All right.
My name's Mike Hall, and I flew fighters in the Air Force for nearly 3 decades, retired as a Major General.
Well, I am retired Rear Admiral Casey Coain.
My name is Bob Biesel. I spent 30 years in the United States Navy and retired as a Rear Admiral.
People are a little surprised when someone from the military says, gee, we should be taking care of little ones. But we think the #1 national security issue for this country is the readiness of our citizens to serve in society and in the military.
71% nationwide of our 17 to 24-year-old population is ineligible to join our military. They can't serve if they want to serve. And that's because primarily they're too poorly educated, they're not healthy, or they have a serious misdemeanor or felony criminal record that prevents them.
Which then begs the question, if you're not qualified for military service, what's your citizen readiness overall?
If they can't qualify to join the military, can they qualify to work for IBM or General Motors or somebody else? And the answer in many cases is no. And so if America can't compete globally economically, then that's a national security issue.
We're looking to this next generation to be able to protect us and our national interests, just as we did for our parents and grandparents.
It's not just about my grandchild, in my case. It's about America's children.
Oopsie daisy. Dun, 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 dun. Actually, let me go ahead and just show this down. Again, this report, I believe, is on the Starting Strong page. Every single topic that's brought up in no small manner, you can read about what's going on within your state and how it's so applicable to the lives that we lead every single day. I'm going to show one more video and then I'm going to bounce off. So please enjoy.
Every time I hear somebody talk about, they're worried about the future of America. They're worried about where we're going to be 25 years from now in terms of, our workforce. And then they're not really interested in investing in early childhood. You want to slap your forehead. Like, what are you thinking? How are we going to get there? All of that foundation for all the things we want to see in society is laid in those earliest years.
Hey, Anna, my great lunch buddy that loves to sit next to me at lunchtime. No matter what we're talking about, she's always got an answer to help solve the problem. So she is voted best problem solver.
Woo! Yeah!
We have a deeper understanding now of how important these early years are and why. And once you know that, you can't just put that out of your mind and walk away.
Do you want to help Mommy? Can you get an onion? You might need 2 hands. You want to peel them off? All right, hold on to that.
The challenge that we have is that people will go, we can't afford this stuff, it's going to cost too much money. What people fail to ask is, how much are we paying as a society because we are not putting those investments in up front?
We need leaders in Washington. We need leaders in every community to step up and say, no, this first. This is our priority. Every child should have access to high-quality early education.
Welcome to the 2015 graduation from the Avancé Parent-Child Education Program.
If we get it wrong, at the very basic level, we have missed an enormous opportunity. At the more egregious level, we have failed young children and failed their families and failed to follow through on the promise of the American dream.
Maria Hernandez y Lorenzo Galvan.
If we get this right, our country will look dramatically different.
Look, early learning is not a panacea to fix everything in society. But what it can do is deeply powerful. We are on the precipice of such an amazing time. We're unlocking the secrets of the brain. First time in history. We never had a way to look into a baby's brain before. There are ways to build environments to optimize the way in which people grow. That's what we call a rich environment for children. Whatever we want to call it, childcare, preschool, home. We have to do it everywhere.
So you kind of have a call to action there. As Dr. Shonkoff said, we need leaders to step up. We need leaders to stress that this is what's important. This is what we need to do. Because again, as we continue to move on, this topic is left behind. One of my biggest fears was that we were going to come out of this pandemic and we would be back at the kids' table. The topic would have moved on. And that thing that we all fought so hard for a year, that we recognize that we need to pay teachers more and we need to thank teachers and we need to invest in teachers, would go away. And as we move into the school year, not much has changed. And all of those hashtags, those trending topics of pay a teacher and thank a teacher are already starting to leave the mainstream. That's not okay. And there's a lot that you can do to make it at the forefront of people's minds. Because like I said, very early on in the impact report, it's a big topic. You don't have to do a big thing. Something so small can make such a huge difference. And if you're wondering, what can I possibly do? If this has energized you at all and you're like, okay, but I'm not familiar with the world of early ed, I don't know much, and I'm not sure about the entry point, that's why Jan's here. So there are two incredible websites that Jan's gonna put up. I just wanna show you how easy it is. This is the Starting Strong Pennsylvania website. Friends, this is their first page. This is the first page. You don't gotta dig for it. It just says take action. That's all you have to do. Like you're not reinventing anything. If you're curious and you want to put your effort into this, this is why you joined the Kiwanis. Like your mission is early ed, is helping children. So this should be something on your bar, your bookmarks that you go to. And also the other website for Ready to Succeed, for pre-K for Pennsylvania, again, this is their first page. All you have to do is hit click here. It's super duper simple. I know that Jan is going to go ahead, stop sharing. There we go. And put that in the chat so y'all can find it. I've seen the difference that early ed, high quality early ed, child's life and in a parent's life, in a family's life. The children from the yellow room are now, oh gosh, I'm the same age, so it's weird for me. But they're 13. And the fact that on my birthday, on random holidays, they all FaceTime me, which again is concerning. These children, when they have somebody in their lives early on who invest in them, who care for them, they never leave. They become part of your lives. And the idea of these children, you have the ability to impact them. You have the ability to alter their complete trajectory. Educators are not the only ones. Parents are not the only ones. Every single person who invests in a child is directly responsible for their success. And that's huge. And the fact that something so simple as supporting like the Working Families Bill, or something so simple as joining part of these communities and saying that you're going to even just tell somebody, hey, let's make early ed an important part of the next election cycle, or let's go ahead and find out what we can do to support a book drive in our community, or what we can do to support a diaper drive in our community. Little things, again, have this ability to trickle down and affect so many other people. I've seen it happen. I've seen the power of Flo Kiwanis in my own family. I mentioned this in the keynote. The thing, like, my grandfather being able to use his Kiwanis connections to reach out and find an incredible interventionalist that helped my sister made her who she is today. And if it wasn't for the Kiwanis, my family would have struggled so much more when it came to Jessica's success. And you don't know her, but the organization you're a part of has helped her be who she is. And that's huge. So for all these children you don't know, I'm going to say thank you. For all these families that you don't know, I'm going to say thank you. Because you're going to go on and you are going to click a button, you're going to ask a question, you're going to spend a few minutes, and those 5 minutes for you will change 5 years for another child. So thank you for having me today, and just rant at the screen for the last hour.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Really appreciate it.
The documentary, why is it like publicly, widely available to show
It's
the
on
world?
Amazon. So we were supposed to have a really, really large national big premiere. Obviously that was during 2020, so that didn't happen. We actually did the largest national premiere on YouTube/Facebook. So it was a big, massive event with over 7 million people viewed, which was great. And now it is available, Nick. You can watch it and rent it on Amazon. I believe to rent it, it's, I want to say $2.99. And I believe if you want to buy it, I believe it's like $13. So it is available now.